Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have John Latta, a mystic, author, teacher, and former founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar consumer products company. He shares intimate and personal stories and teaches workshops on leadership, healing, transformation, awakening, love, synchronicity, and wisdom that unite and expand human experience. That's a lot of things, John. Welcome to the show, John. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, AJ. Appreciate the invitation. Super happy to be here.
You are welcome. And today we'll be talking about human experience, expanding human experience, about healing. And this is what everybody needs, including businesses, including leaders, including normal human beings like you and like me. But you have gone through all this transformation for yourself. My first question is, John, you have been a CEO of a company, a founder and CEO of a multi-million-dollar consumer products company.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of all those things about numbers, profits, bottom line, and everything else, we are talking of spirituality and healing with you. Tell us about this, why we are doing it, why we are not talking numbers, we are talking something much more deeper. Help us understand this.
Oh, that's a great question. I have no idea how I'm going to answer that. I having run a company and have been a numbers guy myself, the numbers are still really, really important. But I think, it's helpful to go deeper always. Like if you're a CEO and you're running a company and an entrepreneur, of course you have to pay attention to the bottom line. Of course you have to pay attention to the numbers. But why are you really doing it? Why did you start your company? What products are you selling? What service are you providing? And I think the more an individual can sort of align with what I would call their soul's desire, the more joyful the experience can be running a company. And I actually think the more successful you'll be too. It doesn't have to feel like you're fighting and grinding and, working 24 hours a day type of thing. And so, I think it's really important to bring what I would call a deeper, more spiritual aspect to work and pay attention to the numbers, both.
Right, John. Right. Well put. I know it was a difficult question, but then you are the master for today. You have gone through all the transformation. You are an awakened man. An awakened man has a lot of understanding, not just of the outside world, but also of the inside. And not everybody is able to go to that inside of himself and to connect with all things that are so important for us, so spiritual in nature. And that is where we depend on people who have gone within and come out with that treasure trove of knowledge and understanding of what we human beings are and what we should be doing. So when we'll talk about your book, The Synchronicity of Love Stories That Heal, Transform, and Awaken. So around this theme, why do you talk of healing? First, let's talk about healing. What is healing about as per you? And why is it important that we talk about healing in today's time? And because you come from a business background, with the state of business, with the state of with the things that are happening, the great resignation, quiet quitting, why you have to talk about healing both in the personal level as well as the business level? How would you like to put that? And how can stories heal both at the personal level, again at the business level? How do they work there?
Right. You want to answer that all in about 1 minute? So, those are great questions. So AJ, from my personal understanding, healing and transformation are the same thing. And so when you say I'm healing, you're actually transforming. And so everybody in life, maybe almost everybody, goes through times in their life, particularly maybe in childhood, where they have difficult experiences, wounding experiences, painful experiences. And those experiences can kind of form their self-identity, their self-perception, and their belief system, how they interact with all of life. And because we all have egos, and by ego, I mean it's how we identify ourselves. And ego almost by nature is sort of limiting. The healing process that can take place later in life, it's different for everybody, allows you as an identity or an ego to expand. And that's, I know that's kind of hard to grasp, but the more you heal, the more expanded you are. The more you heal, the more resourceful you are in every single situation, including in business. Most people don't realize, probably because of a lot of things that happen in childhood, how limited they are. And so I'm a big fan of healing. I think of healing as transformation, and I think of transformation as expansion. And so that's the best way I can put it. The unhealed man or woman is operating on only 50% capacity. The healed man or woman is closer to running at 100% capacity. Does that answer your question?
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
In fact, we are now trying to understand it better from you, John, because you have understood this by your own life story,
Yeah.
by your own journey. So to understand the healing itself, because this is very important for the audience, for a lot of businesses, business leaders, startups, entrepreneurs who listen to my show, and not only this show, many other shows around this, and everybody have a few questions of their own, and
Yeah.
all those questions they ask. You can say, I am a seeker. A lot of people are there as seekers, and they try to find answers from different places to those questions.
Right.
That's the quest that life is all about. So
Right.
help us understand, what is healing in terms of, is it about something to be achieved, or is it about letting go of something from it? What is it? Is it something tangible? How do I know I have achieved that state of healing for myself?
First of all, AJ, I think for most human beings, healing never ends. Even when you think it's ended, there's something else to heal. There's something else to transform. I'll give you an example of my own life. So I grew up as a very rigid, rational, logical, scientific, numbers-oriented individual. And so why did I do that? I had a lot of faith and trust in things I could see and touch. I had a lot of faith in numbers. And I was dismissive of spirituality and things that couldn't be labeled and put into a box that I couldn't see. And so what happened after a lot of painful events in midlife, an entire new world opened up to me that I would say, whatever the opposite of rational, logical, and objective would be, this whole other world of, some would call it mysticism, some would call it spirituality. In my experience, it was moving from a very masculine point of view to a much more feminine point of view. And if we think of a man or a masculine man as being maybe assertive, aggressive, competitive, and that's great. That's actually good. Those are good qualities to have in the business world. But if we think of the feminine as being receptive, maybe good at listening, nurturing, caring, these are a whole other aspects of myself that started to open up to me. And you might say in a way, I had limited myself in a way that I didn't know I was limiting myself. Healing to me feels like now I'm bringing in this whole other aspect of myself, this part of me that can connect with dreams and visions and get information. I still don't know how the hell I get this information. So I connect to intuition. I connect to dreams. I connect to the joy of actually listening to somebody instead of always being competitive and being assertive. And so if you think of all I'm going to call them archetypes that are out there, this person might be expressing the archetype of the warrior, and that's a great quality in certain situations. But if you're only a warrior, you're very limited. And so the way I think of healing is the movement towards wholeness. And the beautiful thing about being more whole is you're more resourceful in every single situation. You're not really limited.
Wonderful. You have explained it well. Now let's come to the stories role, the role of stories in healing, transformation, and awakening.
Yeah.
So, how did you come to this book, The Synchronicity of Love Stories That Heal, Transform, and Awaken?
Yeah. Well, two things. Everybody learns differently.
How think
Oh, sorry.
healing, healing? Yeah. So, how did you come to think of a book, an idea
Yeah.
of a book? Because when you are passing through a difficult stage, at that point in time, you are so focused on just taking care of yourself or not taking care of yourself. Some people take the difficult path of not taking care of themselves. It's just not. You went towards writing a book that needs extra effort, and how that positive mindset
Yeah.
to take refuge in the form of a book? Was it the idea of healing yourself and a book as a part of the process, or you wanted to share those stories for the world so that it becomes a part of the greater good? And help us understand the role of stories that you thought in the transformation of yourself, as well as how it can help people transform and heal for themselves.
Sure. Those are great questions. So why did I write the book? It's that latter that you said. I like to share stories, and everybody learns differently. And I actually learn best from hearing actual lived stories from other people rather than say dry academic intellectual jargon. I want to hear about your experience, AJ. I want to hear what you went through. And I want you to tell it to me in such a way that I'm living it with you. For some reason, that's how I learn best. One of my favorite stories or books, Michael Crichton, the author, I don't know if he's popular in India, but he was hugely popular around the world in the US, and wrote, I don't know, probably 20 plus, 30 plus best-selling novels that usually were kind of cutting edge science. A lot of them made into TVs and movies. Well, a lot of people don't know that he wrote a nonfiction book called Travels. And it was a series of short stories, snippets of his life. And they were very transformative for me. So I went through and wrote my book. It's 119 short stories. They're all loosely chronological. And I tried to write it in first person present tense so that if the reader is reading it, that it feels like they're having the experience too. And so there's a term that's called induction. A person can be inducted into that experience if a person tells a story in a certain way. And you might say they get to take on almost the wisdom and knowledge of that experience. And so that's why I wrote the book the way that I did. It was literally what you said. It was me wanting to give back. So grateful for all the experiences I've had for the last 20 years, and so grateful for other people that write books that way. And Michael Singer wrote a book, a really popular book. I think it came out 5 years ago, called The Surrender Experiment, mostly just a series of short stories. And I love that book. So that's why I wrote it the way that I did. And that's why I wrote the book.
Right, John. So tell us a bit more about the type of stories that your book has, so that people who want to buy, they know. And who is this book for? Secondly, John, you also talk about healing stories that defy rational explanation.
Mm-hmm.
So, should people look at stories which can connect with their say hurt and help them heal, or should they look at stories which defy rational explanation? Do they have more power to heal? Though, and everybody will look at it differently, or stories of real which actually have a rational explanation, people tend to look towards that part. So
Yeah.
how do you look at a rational man that you were, and then again talking about stories that defy rational explanation? Help us understand the importance of not irrational but stories that defy rational explanation, how they come into the picture, how they have their importance, and how, along with the real stories, they find their very important process in your book, in the way you want to share those stories that can help people again transform, heal, and awaken.
Yeah. Let's see. First thing I want to say is I'm the perfect person to write this book. And all you rigid, rational, male, masculine types that don't believe any of this half the mumbo jumbo that's in my book, I can tell you I didn't either. That's why I was the perfect person to write this book. I didn't think 90% of what's in my book was even possible. Even the title cracks me up. I would never in a million years have written a book called The Synchronicity of Love 20 years ago. I wouldn't have even known what that meant. I didn't even know what the word synchronicity meant. And, you know, in the early days, remember I said I have a really strong, rational, logical, mathematical, numbers-oriented mind. I kept having these experiences that I would say, wow, what a coincidence, you know? And I would go, what are the chances of that happening? You know, like 1 in a million. And so over time, I started to adopt the word synchronicity or even miracles to explain things, although I didn't believe in such things, but they kept happening. And so I think the value of a book like this, what I would like is for all you rigid, rational, logical types, just to read it and say, wow, look what happened to John. And just to crack your mind open a little bit to go, maybe these types of experiences are possible in my life. And the funny thing is, to a certain degree, I think a lot of the things that happen to me can be explained logically and rationally. It's not easy. It's not difficult. But what I really want people to understand is that sort of rigid, rational, logical, masculine point of view is just one point of view. And there are people that experience life very differently, where flow, they call it flow, things come to them. Miracles happen, synchronicities happen. It feels like the universe is rolling out a red carpet in front of you without you doing anything. And so, and some people might call that a more feminine way of interacting with life. And so I think what I would want all the rigid rational types to know is there's a great place in the world for rationality. It's certainly very important in the business world, very important for paying bills, paying taxes, you know, staying, you know, who are you going to vote for? Politics, government. I mean, it's all really important, but there's more to life than just that. And I think that's more than anything else. And when your mind starts to open to, oh, I didn't realize there's other ways to view life. And I call that healing. I call that transformation. And some would call that awakening. I think the awakening process is also sort of the process of realizing you're not just this human being. There's actually so much more to you. And so, yeah. And I, like I said, I wrote the book to try to reach those people that, you know, if you live a really rigid, rational, competitive life, and again, it can be great. Those are great qualities for business and a lot of aspects of life, but there can also be a little bit of what I call emptiness or loneliness. You know, there's not a fullness to life. A gentleman I know wrote a book fairly recently called The Re-Enchantment. And that's what I would say, opening your mind to what is beyond the rational adds a little bit of enchantment to your life. And so I would encourage everybody, just crack your mind up a little bit and allow a little bit of enchantment into your life.
Right, John. So who is John Latta today? From after this healing and whatever journey that you passed through, who is John Latta?
Well, it's funny. I have a spiritual teacher friend who's far more mystical than even I am. And he likes to say I'm frequently marooned on the island of logic. So he's always having these mystical experiences and trying to explain them logically and rationally. I'm kind of like him, but maybe not as much. So I flip back and forth between a lot of mystical experiences that usually come to me through dreams and visions, sometimes while meditating. And they're beautiful and extraordinary. And my rational, probably sense of self tries to make sense of them. Same time, I'm married to my beautiful wife, Wendy. We live in Redmond, Washington, in the very northwest corner of the United States. And I sold my company in October of 2019, right before COVID hit, thank God. So I'm semi-retired. I wrote this book. I'm working on literally 4 others at the same time. And now that COVID has kind of been winding down, I've been starting to teach in person in groups again. I've got one this Sunday and one the following Sunday. And I think I have 4 events, 4 or 5 events coming up over the next probably 6 weeks. And I'm semi-retired, writing books, teaching groups, and hanging out with you, AJ.
Thank you. That's nice, and in fact, I look forward to the other books. One thing I want you to understand: you look at leaders. You have must be having a lot of friends in the business world, and
Yeah.
so what would you, and you know the state of businesses, all across the globe, with so much of talk about different aspects of leadership or workplaces, the future of workplaces, then the AI coming in. What would you like to tell the present business leaders who are rational? Nothing harm in being rational. It's the way we have been brought up, especially, your education, your understanding of things. That's fine. That's the way you move forward. And that's the way to live the life that you want to. But after your understanding of life, knowing things better, what would you like to tell them? And would you like to tell them to look at other numbers beyond the numbers that they keep on looking day in and day out? What's your message to them?
Dang, that's a question I've never been asked, AJ. Let's see. I'm not. AI is a really good question that you brought up. And it's funny, my wife and I have talked about that quite a bit. And, where we are in Redmond, Washington, this is where Microsoft is headquartered. And so, in fact, you're going to laugh, even though this is like the area that we live in. I like to call it Little India, because sometimes I think we're the only white folks here. There's so many people from India that have moved to Redmond, and Indian restaurants in every corner. And, obviously AI is a big thing in this area, and a lot of people are talking about it. And so I think I would ask every single business leader in the world to pause and go deeply within themselves and ask, why am I bringing forth this creation? Could be AI, could be anything. And, is it something that's helpful for the world and helpful for humanity? Or is it just some way to dominate the world and dominate humanity? And I think I would just, it's so hard. Part of a healing, part of maturing, part of growing up is outgrowing childhood messages we took on, maybe from our parents or our church or our family or our teachers or well-meaning relatives. And I would tell people to shed all of that and go deep within and say, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? What am I trying to bring forth at the deepest level? And then when you've got that figured out, you still got to pay attention to the numbers. Otherwise, you might go out of business. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well put, John. I understand, and this is the way to move forward. But your guidance is very important, because you have seen the other side also. You have sometimes, grass always looks green on all the sides beyond, but not on your side. And that's the way, people from other side, they will give that perspective. That's the type of perspective you bring. Be that as it may. Now, talking about the book. So, who is this book for? And how can people connect with you to know more about your transformation? How can they get this book wherever it is possible?
Yeah. So my website is johndavidlatta.com, just the way you see it spelled on the screen here, johndavidlatta.com. I got all sorts of information about me, the book, my events. I have a bunch of blogs. You can see some of my unusual writing. That'd be the best way to get in contact with me. The book is available on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And last I looked, Target and Walmart as well. So that'd be the best place to get a hold of my book. And I forgot what your first question was. You mentioned the book. You mentioned where to get
And
a hold of me.
who is this book for? Any
Oh,
particular
yeah.
type of audience, or is it for everybody can benefit out of it?
I think everybody can benefit from it because I tried to not just make the book full of mystical experiences. I also, for a period of time, lost all my money. I was $650,000 in debt. I got divorced. I was a single parent with custody of my two kids, ages 9 and 11, while I was trying to run my struggling company. I went through a whole spiritual transformation while that was going on. 2 years into it, I had a full-blown Kundalini awakening, and I didn't even know what the word meant. And for months, years afterwards, my dreams were full of goddesses and giant cobras, and there was just this incredible energy pouring through my body. And all the while, I'm trying to run a company and raise two kids on my own too. So it's kind of and I think there were some very human parts to the story too that I think people can connect with. So I think anybody can find something in the book. That's partly what I was hoping for. 119 short stories, even if there's just one or two stories that they can connect with. There's some very humbling stories to, I'll share a brief story. Right after my divorce and when I was struggling with my company, I was deep in debt and had custody of my two kids. I decided to sign up for, therapy and counseling. And the gal that I was working with put me in a group. And I had just started working with dreams, and I was realizing dreams gave me a lot of information that I couldn't get otherwise. And in the dream, I am sitting in a circle with a bunch of women that ends up being the group that I'm sitting in. And the women are all talking about shrimp and how they're peeling shrimp and they love shrimp. And but they're worried about John. And I'm like, why are you worried about me? I love shrimp. And they said, well, peeling shrimp can be painful and messy. And I didn't realize the dream was trying to tell me I was about to enter a process where I felt like I was getting the shell ripped off of me and I was stripped. I felt vulnerable and open, and it was terrifying for me for a whole year. Like, I'm supposed to be honest about my feelings, what's really going on in my life. And so, and I think a lot of people can appreciate that. Sometimes they go through experiences in life that are painful and humiliating, and to actually open up and share them with others is a really scary thing. It was a really scary thing for me too. So there's a lot of wild mystical experiences in there. And there's a lot of very, very real, purposeful, helpful experiences as well, and very human experiences. So I try to throw the whole thing in the soup there.
Right. I understand, John. And it's been quite a journey for you, from a lot of experiences along the way. So my last question to you, John, is that looking at the journey you undertook, with so many experiences, and a lot of them were very painful ones, and as well as running the company and doing so much of things. Now you can, I would say you are in a better position. You can look at things much more clearly and are in a position to look forward. So from the position that you are in, what is it now? You have got books planned and all that you already said.
Right.
But from the position that you are in, what is it that you seek for yourself after all this awakening? What is it that makes you go, write these books and look for in this? I'm sure it's not just about a few, some money, more money or something like that.
Yeah.
What is it exactly that you seek? That's what I want to know.
Oh, wow. I feel so vulnerable. I don't know if I can reveal all that to you, AJ. So I think the answer would be kind of like I was suggesting that all the leaders in the world do, that sense of going deep within. And it might be, what does my soul want in this situation? What does God want for me in this situation? And so me, as the human being and as the ego or personality, always in alignment with that. That's the best way I can put it. And so for me today, at this age and stage of my life, it feels important for me to give back, to share, and to help guide others. But that could change tomorrow. I don't think it will be, but I think that that's where I am today. And I always encourage everybody just to pause and go deeply within. And what is your deepest desire? And so the best way I can describe it to you is just what I would call alignment. That I, as I know myself to be, am aligned with the greater me, and that we move together as one.
Wonderful. Move together as well.
Yeah.
On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, AJ.